When the temperature dropped to -22 Fahrenheit on that December afternoon in 1957, I realized my compass wasn't going to save me. I was deep in the northern Ontario forest, maybe 8 miles from my base camp, and the visibility had shrunk to barely 50 feet. The snow was coming harder now, and I'd already been stumbling through that white nothing for 6 hours. My hands were numb, my legs felt like wood. Darkness was maybe 3 hours away, and I knew exactly what that meant. Other trappers had frozen in better situations than this. I'd heard the stories, but something I'd just remembered, something an old Cree hunter had told me years before, kept running through my head. It was about moss. Not the simple folklore everyone repeated, but something deeper, something real. And I was about to find out if it would save my life. I came to this country in 1942 at 18 years old with what I thought was practical knowledge. I'd studied maps. I carried a Silva compass, one of the newer models back then, and I believed I knew how to read direction. Everyone used the same method. You looked for moss on the north side of trees. That was the rule. Simple, reliable. Except it wasn't. I made the same mistakes every trapper made. First mistake was trusting that moss rule absolutely. I'd gotten turned around 17 times in my first 5 years, and I'd wasted countless hours because moss grew thick in shaded areas regardless of direction. Second mistake was relying on my compass needle when the magnetic declination was off, when storms approached, when my mind was exhausted and I second-guessed myself. I'd spent entire afternoons searching in circles because I misread that tiny needle by just a few degrees. Third mistake was ignoring the other signs, the wind patterns, the tree growth, the way light filtered through different tree types. I suffered for it. I spent one night in -15-degree weather huddled against a rock because I'd trusted my compass over my instincts. And I walked in a perfect circle for 8 hours. I was lucky. Plenty of men weren't. In 1945, I met old Thomas Beardy. He was Cree, maybe 70 years old then, and I stumbled into his winter camp half-starved after getting myself lost again. Thomas didn't lecture me. He just watched me try to navigate using my compass while standing right next to a pine grove. He finally pointed at the moss on those trees and said, "You see thick. You see color. You see water in wood. You see how branch grows. One thing no tell you true direction. 5 things together, they never lie." I studied with Thomas for 3 winters after that. 47 separate days I spent learning to read those 5 moss indicators, learning to see what I'd been missing. Second source of knowledge came from my own observations over years. I began testing Thomas's principles against the sun position, against shadows, against the way snow accumulated. I read an old Norwegian trapper's journal in 1951 that described almost identical observations from someone who'd learned these techniques in Scandinavia 100 years earlier. That's when I understood. This wasn't folklore, this was biology. Moss grows thicker on the side receiving less direct sun. That's north in the northern hemisphere. Moss is darker on north sides because moisture stays longer without evaporation. Moss has different texture where humidity is consistent. The wood beneath stays wetter. These aren't mysteries, these are facts. I doubted all of it at first. Real doubt. But in 1953, I deliberately got myself turned around in a blizzard and used only moss indicators to navigate back to a cabin 6 miles away. I got there in 2 hours. I've never doubted since. The first indicator you need to understand is texture and density. North-facing moss grows 40 to 60% thicker than moss on other sides of the tree. This isn't random. This is biology responding to consistent moisture and reduced sunlight. You'll find this thickest moss on the north side of tree trunks in dense forest areas. Start by looking at older trees, at least 15 to 20 years old. These have had decades to build up distinct moss patterns. Run your fingers across the moss on different sides. Feel the difference. The north side will feel substantially cushioned, almost spongy under your touch. The south side feels thinner, sometimes almost sparse. This tactile confirmation is crucial because your eyes can deceive you in poor light. Spend 10 to 15 seconds comparing the thickness. Don't rush this step. If you're in an area without moss, look for lichen instead. Lichen grows thicker on north sides too. The common mistake is confusing thick moss with lichen, or confusing shade-created thickness with directional thickness. The second indicator is color and tone. North-facing moss is darker, significantly darker. This happens because moisture persists on the north side without constant evaporation from direct sunlight. That retained moisture darkens the moss to a deep forest green or even brownish tone. South-facing moss exposed to daily sun exposure bleaches lighter. It can look almost grayish in summer months. This color difference becomes even more pronounced in spring and early fall when the angle of sunlight changes dramatically. In winter, the color contrast is subtle because everything is frozen and covered in snow or frost. But when you're searching for direction in warmer months, this color indicator works perfectly. The tone shift between sides of a single tree is unmistakable once you train your eye to see it. I've used this indicator alone countless times and never been wrong. The third indicator is growth pattern. Moss on the north side grows in a particular way. It grows more vertically, almost reaching upward from the bark in organized formations. The angle of growth is roughly 15 to 25 degrees from vertical, always oriented away from the strongest light source. South-facing moss grows more horizontally, spreading flat against the bark because it's adapted to intense sunlight exposure. This growth pattern takes years to establish clearly, so you won't see it on young trees. You need a tree that's at least 20 years old, preferably 30 or 40 years. Walk around an old tree and observe the moss formations carefully. The difference in growth direction is subtle but real. Your eyes will learn to see it with practice. The fourth indicator is moisture and surface shine. Run your hand across both sides of the moss. The north side will feel damper. It will have a slight sheen or moisture on the surface even in relatively dry conditions. The south side will feel drier to the touch. This moisture difference reveals the fundamental truth of moss growth. North sides receive less direct solar heat, so moisture from morning dew or recent rain evaporates more slowly. The moss stays wetter longer. It stays shinier. This indicator works in almost any weather condition. Even in drought years, you can feel this moisture differential. I've used this single indicator to navigate through dry summers when other moss indicators were subtle. The fifth indicator is branch and leaf coverage above. Look upward. The north side of trees usually has more branches and denser foliage above it. This is because the tree grows more aggressively toward available light. The south side receives concentrated direct sunlight and needs less dense canopy structure to photosynthesize effectively. The north side needs thicker branch coverage to capture scattered, indirect light. This means the moss below has more shade protection on the north side. Less direct sun exposure means more consistent moisture for the moss. You can use this overhead coverage as a validation tool. If you see dense branch coverage above a particular side of the tree, that's where you'll find the thickest, darkest, wettest moss below. This cross-confirmation between aerial structure and ground-level moss indicators makes your navigation nearly foolproof. I first tested this moss method deliberately in the winter of 1953. I was in dense boreal forest near Lake Superior, deliberately disoriented after a heavy snowfall. My Silva compass was in my pack, but I refused to use it. I had 12 hours of daylight remaining and 8 miles to cover to reach a cabin. I used only moss indicators on 23 different trees. My navigation time was 2 hours. I arrived at that cabin with exactly the accuracy I predicted. That's when I knew this wasn't folklore. That's when I committed to mastery. The results compared to traditional methods were staggering. My old approach using compass and map took me 30 to 40 minutes to establish direction in uncertain conditions. This moss method took 3 to 4 minutes. My accuracy rate improved from 82% to 98%. That 16% improvement represented the difference between safe navigation and serious danger. Over 40 years, I've tested this method in 57 different wilderness situations. Dense forest, open meadows, steep mountainous terrain, cloudy days, clear days. Every season from March through November. The method failed exactly 0 times. The only condition where moss indicators became unreliable was in extreme Arctic environments above 70 degrees north latitude, where moss coverage itself becomes sparse. But for anyone living or traveling in temperate or boreal zones, this method is absolutely reliable. Other trappers eventually adopted this technique after seeing my success. By 1960, roughly 12 other trappers in the northern Ontario region were using moss navigation exclusively. By 1970, that number had grown to maybe 30 or 40 across Ontario and Quebec. These men spread the knowledge further. Today, modern applications make this ancient technique even more valuable. A hiker with a dead GPS battery can navigate confidently. A prepper without electronic tools can establish direction in emergencies. A camper in dense forest where compass accuracy fails can use moss indicators for backup navigation. The cost difference is absolutely striking. A quality modern GPS unit costs $150 to $300 and requires batteries. A compass costs $40 to $80. This moss method costs $0. Your only investment is 30 seconds of careful observation per tree. I've lived through 40 years of wilderness navigation. 40 years of testing methods against real consequences. I've taught this moss technique to approximately 89 different people over those decades. I've watched it save lives. I've watched it prevent panic in lost hikers. I've watched it restore confidence in people who thought technology was their only option. The simple truth is this: nature is more reliable than machines. Observation is more powerful than devices. Your eyes and your hands and your patience will guide you more faithfully than any instrument ever manufactured. This knowledge still matters profoundly today. Your smartphone will die. Your GPS will lose signal. Your compass can fail in certain magnetic conditions. But moss will always grow according to the sun's light. This will never change. It will work the same way in 2025 as it worked in 1953. For preppers building self-sufficiency, for hikers respecting wilderness, for anyone who values true independence from technology, this moss method represents something fundamental. It represents the power of simple observation. It represents knowledge that can't be hacked or broken or forgotten. It represents your own capability to survive and navigate using only what nature provides and what your mind can learn. I spent 40 years learning these techniques the hardest possible way, alone, in the cold, making mistakes that nearly killed me. That's exactly why I created this channel. I want to give you 40 years of hard-won knowledge without you needing to suffer 40 years to get it. If you want to learn more techniques like this, techniques that genuinely work when you need them most, subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications. I release a new survival method every single week. Every technique has been tested by me personally across decades in real wilderness conditions. Drop a like if this video helped you. Tell me in the comments if you've ever been in a situation where this moss navigation would have saved you. Click the video appearing on your screen now to learn about star navigation, which works even better than moss when the sky is clear. This is knowledge your ancestors possessed. Knowledge that will always matter. Remember that civilization is only a few days away. But in those few days, observation and patience will keep you alive. This channel presents fictional stories for educational purposes, produced with artificial intelligence assistance. Stay safe out there.